So today I'm here with Danielle Hines, who is the owner of Creed63. How are you today, Danielle?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm glad to have you since colorwebmag.com is a Birmingham-based website, and I've always wanted to feature more Birmingham-based things on my website. And so I'm very grateful and honored that you want to be a part of my website and be a part of me branching out into Birmingham.
Absolutely, absolutely. Birmingham is a special place, and I mean, it's definitely growing. I call it a hidden jewel. So I think that you're going to find lots more people, lots that are interested in what you're doing and that you might have an interest in Birmingham. So thank you so much for having me.
So first, I want to know how did you get started? How did Creed63 come about?
Ooh, that's a loaded question, right? And it's a really long story. And so I'm originally from Washington, D.C.,
Mhm.
and I came to Birmingham to go to law school. And while I was finishing law school and my first job after law school, I was clerking for a judge. Her name was Helen Shores Lee. And Judge Lee and we had a phenomenal relationship. She was Batman and I was Robin. Like literally, that's how we tackled everything that we needed to go to or that she needed me for, right? I was her sidekick. And we just had a really good mentor-mentee relationship. So over the years, we stayed in touch. And in a few years after, I would say probably 5 or 6 years after I worked for her, she and her husband, who actually, Mr. Bob Lee, rest in peace, he just passed the night before last.
Hmm.
So, but Judge Lee and Bob Lee, they sat me down and said, "Hey, are you interested in buying the law office?" I said, "Huh?" So, I'm thinking of what I saw when I clerked for her. And the law office was, it was a smaller space, maybe 3,000 square feet. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do with the law office? And originally I went to them, and then, like I said, they called me back, but I was looking for a space for my party business. And so when they said they didn't have anything for that, that's when they called me back a few days later and said, "Hey, would you be interested in this opportunity?" And so that was how I came to own the Arthur Shores Law Center, which houses Creed63, the co-working space.
Mhm. And how did that name come about?
Oh, so I was very intentional with everything that I was doing. So the genesis of the space itself, it started with two focus groups. I got with Urban Impact, and I told them, I made 3 promises to Judge Lee once I agreed that I would take the space on and purchase it. And I wanted to be intentional. I did not realize at the time there was so much history here. And so the building is named the Arthur Shores Law Center, which is named after her father, Arthur Shores, who was Martin Luther King's attorney.
Mhm.
And so what I wanted to do with the name was keep it in line with civil rights. So I kept looking, I read speeches, I was looking at old videos, watching anything I could about civil rights. And I went back to Martin Luther King's 1963, I Have a Dream speech.
Mhm.
And I saw the word creed. He talked about living out the true meaning of our creed. And so I said, "Woo, that's it."
Mhm.
And CREED is actually an acronym. And so it stands for Community, Resources, Entrepreneurship, Education, and Development. And then the 63, because most people don't realize the name is actually Creed 63. Most people just call
Mhm.
it Creed, but there's a Creed movie, there's a Creed cologne. And so I really wanted the name to stand out. So the actual name is Creed 63, and that's where it came from.
That's really cool. I'm just jotting down what the acronym is because like that's really uh as you said, that's really intentional. And I think that that really speaks to what a lot of Black businesses in Birmingham are trying to do. And I think Black businesses all over the nation, because there's been a lot of talk about generational wealth, uh, reparations, like in terms of like getting money to fund Black businesses and Black banking and things that will help build our economic wealth as a community and as a people. And so I think that that name really speaks to the movement that is happening right now in terms of Black business. And
Yeah, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree.
and with that said, speaking of Black business, the city is majority Black, and that of course means that there's a lot of Black businesses in the country, in the city, but there's been, how do I say this delicately, or maybe not delicately?
Just take it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, there's a big discussion regarding business in Birmingham about like gentrification versus Black owned business. Is the city becoming more of a gentrified city, or is it getting back to the Black owned businesses that helped create the city? Are Black entrepreneurs being helped now? With your position as someone who has created this co-working space for Black businesses, what do you think about the conversations that are happening in the city?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. And I can see both sides, just depending on how you look at it. And I guess where you are geographically, like some people consider some areas Birmingham, and some areas not Birmingham, right? So it really depends on literally the definition that we're using. Are we considering Jefferson County? Those portions of Birmingham metro area, are we calling Birmingham a metro area? But I can say this, we have, as of today, we have 85 small business owners inside of Creed. I mean, with active memberships that are here day in and day out, throughout the day, throughout the weeks, throughout the months, right? And we have private tenants. And I tell people all the time that Creed is not an incubator, it's an accelerator, right? Because our goal is to help you get to where you need to be as a small business so that you can then leave these walls and go out and open your own building, maybe even open your own space, provide jobs, so the way I see it, there's 85 Black businesses in Birmingham in this building. And if everyone is following the resource programming that we have and going through the classes and really tuning into their business and how their business can grow, then I don't think the problem of gentrification will be as profound as what maybe people might think it would be with Black businesses maybe leaving or not being in Birmingham proper. But I tell people all the time, if you are here for 10 years, and we haven't even been open yet for 10 years, right? But that strategically, that is where we're trying to go. We're trying to get these 85 businesses to say, hey, I started out at Creed. Hey, Danielle, how did you buy your building? Hey, Danielle, how do you find staff? Hey, Danielle, I need help with legal work. I need help with financing. Like allow us to help you so that then you can go out into Birmingham and you can go buy a building, or you can rent something somewhere and begin to build. So to answer your question, the way that I see it as there are new businesses in the Black business district that are housed in Creed. And right now our number is 85.
And with those businesses, what, aside from space to grow, what does Creed63 provide those businesses in terms of resources and education?
So we have a lot of resource providers. Of course, Rev Birmingham, Urban Impact, they have their programming. True Fund, we have relationships with all of those organizations. So all the time on a daily basis, we're telling people, hey, reach out to these folks, let them know what you need. You don't even need to let them know that we sent you, but just know that these resources are out here for you. So we like to consider ourselves to be a conduit to push these businesses to these nonprofits, to these organizations, because a lot of them are operating in their own silo, right?
Mhm.
They have their own programming that if you're not in the small business community, you really don't know about it. You really don't have the access to it. And so Creed is on the ground. We're trying to reach people who wouldn't necessarily be in some of these small business groups, who might not even be the type of person to network. So
Mhm.
that's part of what we offer. We offer a grassroots approach to getting small businesses to those resource providers. We have a podcast studio, and every Tuesday night, we have free podcast classes.
Mhm.
We have a training room and a conference room here. So
Mhm.
at any time, any of those 85 members, if they want to have a class for their business, all the space is here for them to do it. So we've had people do CDL classes, the classroom portion of a CDL license. We've had people do CPR training here. We even had someone who has a not Make-A-Wish, it's not a Make-A-Wish program, but it's a program that's a nonprofit that
Mhm.
gives a wish to a child that might be receiving some type of medical treatment.
Mhm.
So we really are space providers and resource providers. In terms of education, we are in the midst of coming up with our own programming that probably won't be ready until sometime next year. But right now, we really want to help facilitate pushing these small business owners to these programs that are already up and established and have backing behind them.
Mhm. Um, and with that, first of all, it seems very extensive, so that's really cool. Um, but one thing that you said that really sparked my thinking was the fact that there are kind of like barriers to entry for Black businesses and entrepreneurs. I think speaking for myself, I guess just as an example, even though I guess I'm technically a small business since I have my own website and I do my own, I'm a freelance writer for so many different places online and stuff, but like um, it's been difficult for me to like figure out who are people I can network here with in Birmingham who are doing the same thing I'm doing. And so I think if it's hard for me, I'm sure it's hard for like other people who are starting from like the ground up, trying to figure out how to get in the doorway. Um, so I guess the lead up that I guess I'm leading up to asking like, what are some, and I think you mentioned some, but what are some like hardcore barriers to entry that you see Black businesses struggle with?
Access to information. I tell people all the time when we have events, and we are approaching our 1 year anniversary. We opened on Juneteenth of last year, so we are
Mhm.
approaching our first birthday. And in this year, we've seen that there is there's not a lack of programming, right?
Mhm.
But there is a lack of having that programming all coming from a concentrated source.
Mhm.
Now there are organizations that do, collect information from other resource providers and they put it out, but the audience is not large enough. Like people don't even know about them to even get that messaging, right?
Mhm.
Um, that's one thing. And then for people who have been in business, there is a gap between someone who is just starting, like that's a startup, and then someone who's been in business for 15 or 20 years.
Mhm.
They still need that help and that assistance. And so a lot of the programming that's out right now is really geared towards those people who are trying to start, just the basics.
Mhm.
And so I think not necessarily the entry barrier, but maybe a barrier to longevity, because the
Mhm.
average small business is only open for about 5 years, right? So we want to kind of get beyond that. And
Mhm.
I think the way to get beyond that is to reach those people when they are out of startup mode and actually functioning, and giving them the support that they need to keep running. One of the biggest things that I see is that there's so many entrepreneurs trying to do it on their own, and
Mhm.
that's fine and it's understandable, but there's only a certain amount of hours in a day, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Everybody gets the same amount of time, and you are one person. And so if you as an entrepreneur have not truly learned how to duplicate yourself, and how to get those things out of your mind to get some help, then you're going to face burnout, or you're going to face, a bad reputation, which is going to affect your business, or your service is going to suffer. And so I don't necessarily think there's barriers to entry for small businesses, because there's so many different ways that people operate and call themselves a small business. But I think the biggest problem is longevity, and really trying to scale up their business so that they are in business for more than 5 years and they are truly creating that generational wealth that they want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, burnout is real, because like I face burnout all the time, and like
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to like manage your time when you're just like one person trying to do everything. So like um that's valuable information for me, to like figure out, how to like manage better, how to network, how to do things that will help me grow my own business. So I'm glad that that is there for other business owners too, to help them learn. Um, you said that the co-working space is in the historic part of downtown Birmingham, or it's described as being in the historic section of downtown Birmingham. You mentioned also about civil rights and the history of civil rights. What does it mean for you to have this type of co-working space in such a historical part of the city and of America, period?
Wow. Wow. You just said something that I'd never really thought about. I think about the historical significance of where we are as it relates to Birmingham, but where this building sits, what happened here did not happen specifically these events. This is a sacred space,
Mhm.
right? And so for you to say nationally, that's huge. And I've never kind of processed that the way you just said that. But it's a tremendous honor. It's a tremendous honor to be able to, it's bigger than me. This is what is happening here. These 85 businesses that I just mentioned, and we are growing. It's bigger than me. And so to be in this space, to have been given the opportunity by someone who was a child of a civil rights leader, Martin Luther King's attorney, that's an honor. And so I made Judge Lee 3 promises when and unfortunately, she actually passed she passed in July of 18, and I was able to close on the building in December of 18.
Mm.
And so she never got to see me actually even own the space.
Mm.
But I made her 3 promises. I told her that I would always keep the building named after her father.
Mm-hmm.
For Black and minority lawyers, they would always have an affordable place to practice law. And I would activate the building so that it was a contributing structure to what is happening in the district, that it would bring vitality to the district, which is part of the reason why I said this has to be some type of space for entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that that really will help the city, especially the historic district. I used to do some reporting on the historic district a couple of years ago when I was working at a local paper, and it was just interesting seeing like the history close up. Like even though I like have lived here like all my life, and I've been down the street where the 16th Street Baptist Church is, I've seen it all my life. So like it's kind of just like normal for me to see it, but like just seeing all these other buildings and like the inside of these there's like a Mason building that I had to report on, a Black Mason building, and just to like see the inside and where people like Duke Ellington and other like famous people used to come in and have concerts, and like they would talk about civil rights and talk about business. There were businesses that were there too, like dentist offices and law offices and all kinds of stuff. And to have that kind of history there, I think that Creed63 does build on that type of history of like, let's have our own stuff. Let's make our own stuff for ourselves that won't be taken away by somebody. So I think that that's really good for the city, because not to get too in the weeds, I guess, about my own opinions about Birmingham, but just the idea of, I feel like it's a city that should, thankfully it always like has owned up to its part in the civil rights movement, and it embraces its role in the civil rights movement. But I hope that it's a city that always remembers what it built itself from. And that includes always making room for the Black descendants of those people, and the people that benefited from those civil rights leaders, to give them space to grow and to make the city in their image, which is what partially what the fight was about, to be able to be a full human being and exercise your full rights, and not be sequestered and shot at, and have the hoses put on you and stuff. So I think that Creed63 really does build on that kind of legacy. So I think it's cool. In short, I think it's great that this is here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and you mentioned something about the hoses and the children's marches. And so this building is actually by the Department of Interior. It was considered, I believe it was either 2003 or 2006. It was declared a contributing structure to the civil rights movement based on the things that happened, which is really interesting because, buildings across the street or down the block, some of them are not, so this going back to your question earlier, this is very sacred, sacred land. And we definitely stand on the shoulders of those that came before us. And, we need to be sure that we're strong enough for those other shoes and feet that need to stand on our shoulders too. And so that's part of what, we are trying to really instill in the people that come through Creed and that are community members, to let them know that we are a community. We don't refer to anyone that comes to these doors as a client or a customer. You're a member because you are a member of this community. And, like tomorrow, for example, we have an event in the morning. It's Donuts with Danielle. And that's going to be a monthly event that we have. And going back to your question earlier about where are these people to network with, that is something that's free. It happens once a month that anybody can come to and network with one another. And we try to make it easy. And we create a topic for that day. And so, you can just walk up to someone and say, hey, what are your pressure points in your business? My name is Danielle, or my name is Danielle, and I'd like to share with you my pressure, something to help facilitate networking and conversation and just getting beyond the normal, here's my business card, give me a call. And so I really feel as if, creating a community will help facilitate a lot of conversations. It'll help spark a lot of ideas, and it'll create relationships that last well beyond what we're doing here at Creed.
And I think I have maybe one or two more questions. It might be like two parts of the same question, really, but I guess the first part is, what do you see in terms of business and I guess economic growth for Birmingham's future as far as Black business is concerned? And along with that, what do you think the future holds for Creed63?
Well, let me back into that question, right? So I know that Creed cannot hold all of the Black businesses in Birmingham, right? We would love to. And I tell people all the time, the best way to think about Creed is that if you quit your job at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, we want you to feel comfortable enough to walk through these doors and say, hey, I just quit my job. I want to start a small business. Where do I start? Right? So I guess kind of answering the last part of your question first, Creed is going to do all that it can to support as many entrepreneurs as possible, right? Even if we can't, we want other co-working spaces to come up and to have, good programming and that community feel and community base, because that will increase the capacity that we have as a city to be able to facilitate more entrepreneurs and more classes. And to that extent, Creed, we are actually in the process of looking at opening up another location very soon. Sometime at the end of this year, there's going to be It's going to be a pretty big facility.
Oh, cool.
And so just the growth of entrepreneurs in Birmingham, we want them to be successful, right? We want the rest of the country to look at Birmingham going on there with all these businesses opening up.
Mhm.
You know, and it's not that Creed wants the credit for it, because at the end of the day, if your business is successful and you are vibrant and you are doing well with sales, it attracts other business. You know, just look at how some big box retailers scope out locations, you know, based on income, based on things that are happening in that particular area. And it's the same way for small businesses, you know, so people want to be somewhere where they know the ecosystem for small businesses is growing. And I believe wholeheartedly that Birmingham and the city of Birmingham is doing a tremendous job in trying to facilitate more small business owners to emerge, right? To get that fear and not only emerge, not just to start, but to grow, like I mentioned earlier, and to really scale. So I think the future for Black businesses in Birmingham is very, very bright. I think that we do have some work to do. I think we have some coming together to do, and maybe even some strategizing, you know, long-term planning just as a community. I think that's important for anybody. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Can you tell the audience where they can find you in Birmingham and a phone number that they can call?
Yes. So you can find us on Instagram. We are at Creed, CREED _63. We have a very active social media manager. And so if you have any questions, she will definitely get back to you. We also have a community manager here. His name is Eric. And Eric, his email address is cm@creed63.com.
Okay. Well, that's great. I'm so thrilled to have talked with you today. I look forward to more great news from Creed63, and you know, I wish you luck with the expansion and the rest of your career of helping small businesses make their mark.
I appreciate that. And if you need us, or you know anyone that does, it's free to come in and ask questions. So, you know, even if you don't become a member, again, it's all about, you know, creating a good ecosystem of small businesses, Black businesses. And, you know, if you need anything from us, we would love to share information.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.